And we're good there. And now we go live. Yeah. Nice. And I will quickly share the Linkaroonie around.
Please.
And we shall begin. We're live. Boom. And then
Beautiful.
I'll share the Linkaroonie over here on my YouTube. Boom. Good to see you, everyone. For all who are coming in, my name is Wibbleson Wobbleton, and look who I have. I have a friend here that we have not seen in some time, far too long on my channel. We've missed you here, my friend.
Hey guys. Yeah, dude. I'm excited to be here. I'm always happy to talk some Age of Empires.
Thanks, man. It is awesome to have you back. I have my super duper fancy interface all set up, and I'm ready to talk about some Age of Empires news. Yeah, guys, we're actually doing a stream about Age games for once. It's been like 4 streams. No. Hey, Guire, good to see you in the comments, my friend. As per usual, if you guys have questions or comments or thoughts on any of the stuff we're talking about, or you want to hear us talk about other random stuff, please do let me know, and we will try to get to you as we are going through. We'll keep an eye on the chat. Hi, Diaborn. Hi, Riza. Good to see you guys. We're talking about AoE 2 Chronicles DLC first. Yes, we are, Diaborn. Do we want to let like a minute or two to let people filter in, or do we want to just jump into it?
I'm good with whatever you want, man. I am a very amenable guest.
Cool. Well, I know that one for a fact. I suppose as a quick starting point, Kaiser, do you have any stuff to talk about in regards to your channel, like for people who are not sub to you or don't follow you? What are you doing right now?
I guess I'll just So Iron Kaiser Gaming. I'm kind of an everything Age of Empires channel. Really kind of a variety strategy channel, but in practice it spans out to mostly an Age of Empires channel. So AoE 2 and AoE 3 are my big games. Really enjoy them a lot. And also, what I've really become is a big RTS mods channel. I love showcasing the creativity of modders and what they can do with strategy games. So I've had on my channel stuff like the Expanding Fronts mod for Star Wars Galactic Battlegrounds, a bunch of Age of Empires 3 mods, the Rome at War mod for AoE 2.
Battle for Middle-earth
was a big one. Yep. The Age of the Ring for Lord of the Rings, the Battle for Middle-earth 2, which, if you guys don't know, that game basically just went free to play a few months back.
Wow.
Which is really cool. So anybody could just kind of go and download the game, the mod, and really, if you're going to play Battle for Middle-earth 2, you play the Age of the Ring mod. It's incredible.
Hell yeah.
So that's that's what I do. It's a little bit of a variety, a little bit of just whatever I'm feeling.
Yep.
So.
Sounds perfect. For those of you who are not yet subbed to Iron Kaiser, go do so. He's a longtime friend of the channel, and it's great to have him on. Okay, so I say we jump into the Chronicles DLC. I have the little posty post up on screen right now. Now, I'm guessing everyone who's watching has already seen the announcements. I don't think we need to go through and like plonk away at saying what exactly is going on here, right? However, I think what could be interesting would be not only to go over what we know about the designs of these civilizations, because they have released some teasers that I found on the wiki, but also I thought it could be interesting if we were to go over a little bit about Chronicles more broadly, and especially take a look at how this fits into the greater Age landscape, as well as just kind of take a look at the designs, because there are some interesting designs here, and I want to give them their credit. What do you think?
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, so besides it being another big honker campaign, presumably it will have all the nice bells and whistles that they've had before. The things that I wanted to talk about in particular were the designs of the 3 civilizations that they have. So specifically some of the new bonuses and their implications for modding, because that's usually what I care about. And when there's a new thing that drops, I'm always like, okay, what'll this do for modders? Besides, fuck all of their existing mods, and they'll have to work to fix them. So for the Macedonians, Macedon, if you want to be frickin' technical about it, a pedant about it, as I am. First of all, reduce damage from enemies on higher elevation as a civ bonus. This one felt inevitable to me. I don't know about you, but I was like waiting for this to be added.
Yeah, we've got, what do we have? We have greater damage from higher elevation.
Yep.
We have take reduced damage from higher elevation.
Yep.
So you're right. It's kind of one of those bonuses you're just waiting to drop.
Yeah. Reduce damage on lower elevation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next is going to be increased damage from lower elevation.
Yeah, exactly.
Collect them all. Well, Exodia. And then we'll have a civilization whose only civ bonuses in the custom civ creator are all 4 of those. Yeah.
I'm going to jump in here. The next one is really cool,
Yeah,
I
do it.
think. The infantry armor upgrades benefit cavalry.
Fully agree.
This is a bonus I think is really neat. I'm surprised we haven't seen already. I like the flexibility
Yep.
that
absolutely.
it brings in because, in fact, no, I'm remembering now. This was a bonus in the Rome at War mod. I can't remember which faction got it, but it is a really cool bonus. Cool. It just provides you this pivot, like you can open up with, maybe you do like a men-at-arms play and you get the infantry or something, but then you switch over into knights. And you already have that armor locked in. It's really cool. It feels nice.
And credit to them for putting it on a civilization it actually feels like it makes sense for. Obviously, the armies of Macedon and Alexander were some of the most famous early implementers of heavy cavalry, even though they certainly weren't the only ones, as well as having that massive infantry corps. So having this does feel like it does somewhat belong for their aesthetic and their story in history. And Diaborn, I wouldn't say that Alexander united the ancient Greek city-states. I would argue that he conquered them. I don't know that he was exactly all that popular in Thebes and Athens, even though he did certainly slap them around.
Macedon,
Yeah, exactly.
Tomato, tomato.
Potato, potato, yeah. Oh, pardon. Mini-Me says, works on PC, not on phone for chatting. I'm sorry about that. I didn't know that was a thing. I haven't heard that before, but if so, I apologize. Next bonus that they have revealed for the Macedonians is siege weapons have extra pierce armor and anti-building damage. So your siege is siegier. A little random.
Is the pierce armor that useful?
Yeah. I mean, it does make it so that like a crossbow micro against mangonels is way harder.
Yeah. You're right.
So it's
You're
relevant.
right.
I'd be curious to see where they got the justification for this one, if indeed they have any, or if it's vibes based. Because on a vibes based level, yeah, Alexander did do a lot of sieging. I don't actually know how many engines he used. That's not like a factoid I've ever looked into, but so I guess I can see from like a vibes perspective where they're coming from. I'm just not sure on anything else.
I remember a story about Alexander building this massive flotilla to it's like kind of a naval siege play. That was a big thing. But beyond that, I don't really remember.
Yeah,
the exploits of his siege works.
Precisely. So I'd be curious to see if there was more than vibes behind this pick. And then they have the Phalangidae and the companion cavalry. Blah blah. We don't know a ton about those, but I think we can be pretty confident in what they're going to do. And then the fortified outpost. Now, I remember Spirit of the Law talking about this thing, and yet I cannot for the life of me remember what he said about it. I just remember that it was something that was like a mini castle creep host type dealio. Or am I wrong about that? That felt like what it was.
Yeah, no, I don't know the particulars of the fortified outpost. It sounds like an upgrade to an outpost, which is a cool idea.
That is a cool idea, but I wonder if they have a promotional thing. Sorry if I'm being poorly prepared, friends. That was one I didn't remember. But now the Thracians, while we have way less information about them, although I think there's some stuff that isn't yet showed on the wiki. The one that they do have is the hit point regen for skirmishers in early ages. Which to me sounds like an awful lot of fun. Obviously, you can't really have a Thracian civilization without having a skirmisher focus to some degree.
Do we know? I find it so fascinating, the wording there. HP regen for skirmishers in early ages.
Does that mean it falls off?
Is this a bonus that actually falls off? Yeah.
I wonder. That would be.
And if so, that would be a first, right?
I think it would be. I would love to see it. I think it would be sick.
Yeah.
But I think people would scream about it.
it would be very different. But I think it's something that, I mean, you've talked before about introducing more levers,
Yep.
more opportunities for diversifying the civs, and the idea of bonuses that drop off as
Yep.
you go up ages, or bonuses that get weaker over ages, is an area we haven't really explored
I agree.
in
Or
AoE2.
another thing that can be done is what you could call a swap bonus, where
Mm,
it's a bonus that starts strong in one regard in early game and tapers to be replaced with another bonus that tapers up.
right,
So imagine if
right.
skirmishers had HP regeneration that went from like 33, 25, 10, 0%, or like 33, 25, 10%. So feudal to imperial. But then they inversely got a bonus to HP 10, 25, 33%. Reason this is relevant is because in earlier game, microing your skirmishes is way more viable. And in late game, they're going to die in droves no matter how good their HP regen is, so you
Yeah,
may as well make them tankier. I think that would be sick.
I agree. That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
I think that's just a really neat, even outside of the specific bonus, if we're reading that right, it's a really cool testing of the AoE2 standards, and sort of opening the door. That's what Chronicles is all about.
yeah, I agree.
Is opening the door to these unique things that regular AoE2 wouldn't dare do yet.
I will say though, I really doubt they're gonna do it, but it would be sick. Like
It would be. It would be.
the and Ace in chat says, "What's the inspiration for HP regeneration for skirmishers?" This is another one that I'm pretty sure is vibes based, though for me it's like a slightly better vibes based one because of course the Thracians were famous raiders, famously used the peltist really effectively. Raiders tend to hit and then run, and during the run part you heal. Yay! Like that's kind of how I piece that bonus together, but maybe there's something more specific than that.
One of my favorite things about mentally, looking up the history and designing civs is sometimes the history gives you the bonus falls right into your lap, right? I
Yeah,
mean, it's
it really
practically
does.
built into history, and then other times it's like, well, they kind of used cavalry, so figure something
Sometimes.
out that
Yeah.
hasn't really happened yet. Yeah.
Yeah, precisely. Well said. Now, the last one to talk about is the Puru. I am really quite delighted to have this civilization around, even if having the kind of Punjab enemies of Alexander be called Puru is I've heard like a little weird, but it's not the weirdest. Special shout out to their signet. I think it is gorgeous. This elephant coin. It's like a seal, right? Like a wax seal that's kind of coin shaped with the elephant on it. I think it's gorgeous. I have no idea what it's based on, but I really like it.
Yeah.
And then for the
I will say,
oh yeah,
I think we could give the team their credit. So all three civs are really beautiful. The new architecture
oh
designs
yeah,
are nice.
completely agree. Like that's the thing about Chronicles. Even though, as I'm sure we'll get into later, I do continue to have some skepticism around Chronicles. The beauty is staggering. I think it just
Yeah.
looks lovely, and it just makes me really sad that we don't get that for the base game civilization.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's almost this like the other side of the coin to maybe what we saw with the last AoE2 DLC, where without going into the weeds, but
Yeah.
I mean, there were people that were kind of disappointed at the amount of investment in the aesthetic diversity
Uh huh.
of the five civs
Yep.
that we got, and here it's like they're nailing,
Yeah.
going above and beyond for the look of these
I
civs.
fully agree. In chat, Diaborn adds Thracians got some nice buildings, like their town center is literally combined with a mountain. That's beautiful. I'll try to pull it up in a moment. And then and Jimenez says it's Ravi. Hey Jimenez, good to see you, man. Guayer says Puru is a pretty bad name, and at least India having small divisions early on might mean they might want to do a Moria Civ later down the line. I would love to see that. I think that would be incredible, but I think it's unlikely. The civilization bonuses that we have revealed for the Puru are one, stone mines lasting longer. This feels like one of those they had to do it eventually ones again. And then here's the thing that I'm most excited for in the entire DLC. Stable units regenerate hit points when out of combat. Oh, yes! The whole when out of combat thing is so exciting to me. I have been waiting for that shit because then suddenly you can start thinking about potentially doing charge up bonuses. This unit gets up to 50% bonus movement speed when still, and then it tapers off when you start moving. This unit gets bonus armor incrementally when still or when out of combat. Ah, yes, I love it. So that's why I think that these sort of modular bonuses based on unit activity are so important.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if
I agree.
anyone else is as
That's-
excited as I am about that, though.
Yeah, I definitely see the potential. I mean, like we were talking about, more levers, more opportunities for diversifying units because you can only have so many, cavalry but +1 melee armor or
Yeah,
something like that.
exactly.
If we're gonna have 50 civs, we're gonna go beyond 50 civs. In the regular game, we need to be opening up these sorts of levers and opportunities for diversifying units. So.
Yep, I completely
I
agree.
guess the question would be, and maybe you can tape. We don't have to get into this right now, but do you ever have in your mind like this would be cool, but it strays too far from Age of like the
Yes,
AoE feel,
I would say
and I
so.
wonder what that line looks like.
So I can actually give you that line, and I can actually give a couple of them. So for me, if when I'm designing what I'm trying to do, like as a LAVAnilla civilization, right? My term for something that is technically feasibly implementable as a civilization. The line that I personally walk, even if something is technically implementable, um, comes. It would come pretty much purely down to how hard would it be to implement it. And so let's say something is technically implementable, but would be wildly difficult to do for just a single small mechanic. I think that is too far. And the reason that might sound kind of arbitrary, like, well, what about the feel of the game? In my opinion, the feel of the game is directly tied to feasibility of implementation. And therefore, if something is difficult to implement, it's kind of the game telling you something, you know?
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
as an example, I was talking with a friend about, like a modding friend, about how possible it would be to do something like changing elevation bonuses and penalties.
Okay.
And she was like, "No, don't even try. You're fucked." And that's the game telling you something.
Yeah.
As my mother would say, that's the universe telling you something, Rob. So that for me is the line of feasibility of implementation.
Nice.
Uh,
Okay.
Now, again, that said, if we're talking LAVAnilla, there's also the thing of like, I'm going to add 50 new units. Now, obviously, there's a
Right.
line
Right.
there,
Right.
but in terms of going past LAVAnilla, I don't think there are many bounds.
Nice. All right.
But
Cool.
that is obviously a rather extreme opinion. Let's see if the Thracians cool ass buildings. Yeah, there we go. Boom, got one of their gorgeous buildings on display. Lovely, lovely looking civilization. Though I don't think this is a TC. I think this is a wonder. Now, in regards to Chronicles more broadly, um, I have
Yeah.
been pretty, I've been pretty public about my dubiousness of the Chronicles model. Even though I think it does a lot right, and there's a lot of things I really like about it,
Hmm.
there are still things that I think I'm not thrilled about. But I believe you're a lot more positive on Chronicles than I am, so I'd love to hear your thoughts more broadly as well.
Yeah. Sure. Well, part of it is I know, I know some of the guys that are behind it. I was showcasing the Rome at War mod before Chronicles was a thing,
Yeah,
and
back in
just some
your
of the guys
day.
there that are, yeah, yeah, back in the day, and actually, I will say this: one of the moments I'm most proud of in this Age of Empires sphere is I think that I might have inspired what showed up in Chronicles, the idea of the civilizations having two different technologies in Castle and two in Imperial, and you get to pick one.
Yeah,
I had a video way back in the early days of Rome at War where I just decided to rant about the history of the civilizations.
yeah,
And when they got to Judea, I think that's the name of the civ. When they got to Judea, I was talking about how there's such this societal split between kind of more the zealot path or more the Herodian path. It
yeah.
would have been really cool if there were actually, I don't think this is possible, but if you could do two different technology paths, to represent the split, I think that'd be really cool.
And then the
And
Roma Bellum people did it.
And then they did it later.
That's
Yeah,
so
in a
cool.
later patch, they're like, that's awesome. I think we should maybe look at that. And so it showed up in the mod, then it showed up in Chronicles, and I think I have thrown a little pebble that changed the course of official Age of
Yeah,
Empires. Which anyway,
that's
that's
sick.
my little, puffing myself up
Oh,
here.
excuse me.
Anyway,
My 3-year-old is bashing on the door. Sterling,
oh yeah,
what's up?
children are the best.
I
I
really doubt
adore
he did,
children,
but could you
and
please
they're the
go
future
and
Age of
talk with
Empires
Mama
players.
about it? Because I'm in the middle of streaming right now.
So,
I know
needless to
that.
say, I'll
You
kind
want
of
to come
talk
say
a little
hi?
bit while Robbie's handling business here. I love, I think Chronicles is really neat. Um, I think that
Want to say hi?
what Chronicles represents.
Hi.
Hi!
Thank you, boys. All right.
Hey, everybody! Hey, guys!
Go check in with Mom.
I think great.
Let's check and see. Yeah,
So
the car lights are actually up.
I've known Robbie for a little while, and it's wild when you sort of seen this little bundle, and you blink,
Yeah, I seriously
and
doubt that the
there's
2-year-old turned on the car, but that is what the 3-year-old has accused him of. Pardon.
got places to go, people to see. I was just saying how I've known you for a little while, and it's just so hard to believe that what I've known as a little bundle,
Yeah, exactly.
just you blink and
they
it
grow up
becomes.
so fast. It's incredible,
Yeah.
man. Okay, pardon the child interruption.
No, not at all. No, we were having a great time.
Nice.
Um,
So
but
yes,
so
please carry on.
yeah, what I was
your
saying is, so
influence.
Chronicles, I think it's cool. Chronicles represents something for me personally
Goodness
of
gracious. I'm so sorry, Kaiser. 1 second, if you wouldn't mind chatting for a moment.
problem.
Yes.
But I will go and tell the group here. Chronicles for me represents something that is sort of like you have to tackle the world as it is and not as you'd like it to be. In that I am a multiplayer guy. I love ranked AoE 2. I love player versus player. I'm not the best at it. I'm not some pro player, but I love watching and playing, spectating, casting player versus player games. And watching people battle it out and designing civilizations so that they're fine-tuned for that multiplayer experience. That's what gets me going in real-time strategy games. But I have heard, analyst after analyst, the people with the data say, if you're into strategy games, like the vast majority of the RTS audience is into the single-player side of things.
Apologies. It turns out the 2-year-old
No.
did turn on the car. Wow. Who would have thought?
Wow. Vroom, vroom.
So I'm so sorry for the interruption.
All right, so I'll get you caught up to speed. I was just
Please.
telling the audience that Chronicles for me represents a little bit of something of the universe being the world being as it is and not as you'd want it to be. Because for me, as an RTS guy, I love multiplayer. I love the 1v1, 2v2 experience. I love playing it. I love casting it. I'm not the best at it, but I really enjoy playing and casting multiplayer games and balancing civilizations around that multiplayer experience. But I've read analyst after analyst, the people that have the data that say, if you're into strategy games, it's all about the single player. It's like, do you have a great campaign? Do you have a great single player experience? And Chronicles speaks to that. So I think having these massive, beautiful campaigns is awesome for the game. I think it's awesome for the people that play Chronicles and play AoE 2. I think that's really, really cool. I like that they're investing more into exploring how to take that single player element to the next level.
Yep, I
So that
fully
part's
agree.
pretty cool. Yeah.
I think that is one of the strongest points about Chronicles is that it's giving the single player audience more of what they want.
Yeah.
Though I will say, I think that there is another solution too, which I'd really like to see the game explore more, which is co-op campaigns. I think the current co-op scenarios we have are doo-doo. They're awful, and I do not think it would be terrifically hard to design a couple of co-op campaigns. Like, imagine $5 DLC with 3 full-length co-op campaigns. You don't need this fancy cutscenes. Just give us normal Age of Empires campaigns. Maybe make them harder than average for a little bit of extra fun. And $5, you get 3 of them. Bam, chuck them out into the ether. I think those would do super well. I think co-op campaigns are wonderful.
You know what else would be cool? I don't know
Hmm.
if this can happen in AoE too, but in the most recent Age of Mythology expansion, of course, the spotlight's on the Japanese and all the cool god powers and things like that. But I think sort of hidden in the wings of that expansion is this new Gauntlet mode, which is a one player or it's a co-op experience, and it's sort of it's like a roguelike kind of thing.
Yeah, they need to
To
do
where,
stuff like that.
yeah,
That's the sort of thing I've been wanting to see myself for a while. So that would be huge. I
yeah.
wonder how it will actually impact the numbers though, because Age of Mythology has been not wonderful for a little while.
Yeah, well, I think I would say one of the flaws in the marketing is that that has not been spotlighted more.
Sure.
I would love people to see how cool that concept is.
Yep, absolutely. So, to quickly go over my lingering concerns with Chronicles,
Yeah.
the first and foremost is I think it's a wild force to cram this time frame into AoE 2. I would have been fine building up to it, but I would have really much happier with Chronicles if it started in the AoE 2 time frame, which is already ballooned and bloated. Um, and because there's something rather galling about having to if you're someone who loves classical history and pre-medieval history, there's something rather galling to have bought AoE 1DE and have it been shit, to then having bought the AoE 2 nested AoE 1 thing and have it had it been shit, and then to have been forced to buy these things one by one by one and have them been good, but you then don't have a big multiplayer component. I finally we found a way to have pre-medieval gameplay that's actually good, and yet we don't have a multiplayer component, and I think that's
I do
very
agree
frustrating.
that one of my disappointments when the first Chronicles came out, I really wish that there had been a discount if you had already purchased
Yeah,
AoE 1DE, or a
exactly.
discount if you had purchased the Return of Rome. Because, yeah, you're right. It is sort of trampling upon or stepping into very similar, just from a historical point of view. It's like this is the third time we're going back into the ancient world. Um, and I think that would have done a lot to make people more willing to invest in it and check it
Yep,
out.
I fully agree.
And to feel rewarded as a customer,
Yep,
you
I
know.
fully agree. And
So I agree with that. Although your suggestion to say if Chronicles had been a medieval time frame expansion, I don't know about that because I think talking mechanically, the whole concept here is we want to split off this separate world with civilizations that are, again, push the envelope into what Age of Empires can do. And my guess is, if I know the AoE community, if it had been Chronicles: The Rise of Charlemagne or something like that, then people would have been saying, "Oh, this is awesome. Let's get this into regular AoE," and they wouldn't have been as willing to let it branch off into its own
I can see
thing.
the pushback in that regard. So if they were well and truly trying to keep it entirely isolated, there is some wisdom to it. But even at the same time, one of my consistent concerns with Chronicles has been the value it provides. I think that it's beautiful. I think it's lovely, but it is finite. Um, and as someone who measures the worth of games based on how many hours I can put into it, I don't know if it's worth the money. That said, I think I may be in the minority when it comes to measuring game value that way. So I am willing to concede that I am not a universal there.
I mean, I'm right there with you in that. Again, for me, it's all about the multiplayer, and that's one of the reasons why is you could just always play another multiplayer match, right? It never ends, unlike a campaign.
Or even just
But
replayability. Like, imagine if
right,
Chronicles had come with, I don't know much about this gauntlet thing. We can talk about that soon. But, like,
mhm,
come with a gauntlet mode, come with a roguelike,
right,
come with, like, this replayable component that allowed you
right,
to experience Age of Empires in a completely different way on top of this
yeah,
beautiful, polished campaign, on top of all the awesome modding assets, all that sort of thing. And frankly, the other thing that really bugs me about Chronicles, well, there's twofold, I guess. One is I really dislike the three at a time model. I think that's very cheap. If they're going to implement Roma ad bellum, give us the whole thing and make it quite expensive. Like I would have been totally fine with it being substantially marked up if they had just given us even not even the whole thing. Imagine like six of the civilization rather than this drip feed of three at a time. And And then maybe you could add campaigns over time and have those be gated. Sure, I don't mind that. But the other one that I really got cross with is it still doesn't feel far enough. It doesn't feel differentiated enough from Age of Empires. The only real big differences you have are some beautiful reskins, some lazy, shitty renames of technologies, which I hate, and a mildly more interesting dock that still has problems. And that, to me, is not different enough. I would have wanted to see a much more faithful to Roma ad Bellum tech tree overhaul that maybe forced you to approach the game completely differently instead of doing, okay, I'm going to do my drush into scouts and bloody fucking blah. Something really different. I think that would have been way more satisfying from my perspective, at least.
I mean, I can definitely see that. And you and I both talked back before Chronicles 1 came out, where I think the most exciting thing about Chronicles, probably for both of us, is more what it represented as a potential for how AoE would continue to grow, and the the opportunities for these sort of sub, how do I want to put it? It's like sub modes, like
Yeah. The sub mode thing could be huge. I just don't
right,
quite think they've gotten it yet.
right. So yeah, and I still think that's. I wonder what that looks like here in 2025. Are we going to see? Are we ever going to see Star Wars Galactic Battlegrounds DE?
That would be amazing. That'd be
It would be
absolutely freaking amazing.
incredible.
I mean, I would imagine Lucasfilms needs the money, so hell yeah, let's do it.
I can promise you this: Lucasfilms is not over there saying, we've got enough money. Don't worry about it. We're good on cash. So, yeah, but I mean that would be incredible. Or what about, like, I know my Age of Empires 3 fans would just, their heads would explode if there was like a Napoleonic
That would be
AoE2.
incredible.
I mean, it would be incredible though. Yeah.
But the Age of Empires 3 people would be like, you mean to tell us?
Yes. That's right.
And I would completely be there with them, because that was part of the thing that bugged me about Chronicles. You mean to tell me I bought AoE 1DE, then Return of Rome, whatever the fuck that shit-ass expansion was called, and then this, and all of them have been bad up until this, and this feels unfinished. Well, although I will say the other thing that kind of irks me about it is the mixed signaling that we've gotten, particularly with the stupid Three Kingdoms thing, which, I mean, based on all the observable evidence, was clearly intended to be a Chronicles, and then they crammed it into the game last minute, even though nothing about it fits as much as they would like to pretend it does. I've found that really stupid, not to mention very disheartening for the prospective future of Chronicles at that point. Obviously, we see now that that's not the case, but I really felt like that was a real example of how their messaging and their intent behind Chronicles felt misdirected. Do you see where I'm coming from, or do you think I'm overreacting? Because I could totally concede that I might be overreacting.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. As far as, let me make sure I'm summarizing your point correctly. That basically the Three Kingdoms DLC sort of tread upon similar ground, which impacted just the unique sort of niche that Chronicles had carved out for itself. Is that more or less what you're getting at there?
It's more like, I suppose in a similar direction to that. Why add these civilizations to the base game that obviously don't fit, when you made a point of not adding the other civilizations that obviously don't fit from the first Chronicles?
Yeah. No, that I agree with. And I guess if we're going to pivot to Three Kingdoms a little bit, I was thinking about this the other day, and I enjoy the civs from a gameplay point of view. I think the Wu it has been just a really fun design personally for me to play around with. So I like
totally
playing with the
mechanically
civs.
they look pretty
fun, mechanically
honestly.
They're fun, and actually there's a degree of simplicity that they brought in that I thought was surprisingly fun. Like, normally I'm expecting these civs to get more and more complex and finicky, and they were able to just, at least with those Three Kingdoms, the three, they're pretty straightforward, and that was kind of cool. So I like them mechanically, but thematically, insofar as you care about thematics, those three civs feel like the very first civs that have been added, where and go with me on this. The year is 2035,
Mm.
and Neo Microsoft decides to release Age of Empires: The Next Generation, the super definitive edition, right? And so they're bundling everything they've ever done Age of Empires into one new product in 2035. I feel like the Wu Wei and Shu would be the first civilizations added to the game where kind of like the Chinese expansion for the original Age of Mythology. This feels like the first civs out of the game. We feel like, yeah, you could excise those and it'd be okay. It would be, we don't really
Yep.
need that in the new AoE 2. Because it does, just whether you're talking about the timeline, whether you're talking about um I know there are a lot of people that have very strong feelings about heroes. Um
As you might imagine,
there's
that's like one of the less of my concerns. My annoyance with
yeah.
heroes is that everyone didn't get them. That's
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I actually don't mind the heroes so much conceptually. People say heroes don't belong in AoE2. I don't know about that. But
yeah.
I do think, Xiao Xiao is cool, but he's not more worthy than Joan of Arc, or Saladin
Yeah.
or something. Well, why aren't these guys,
Well, agree.
a
And
lot of people
I will
buy AoE
totally
for the experience of
concede.
the hero story, so
Yeah,
why aren't they
exactly.
in?
And I will
Yeah.
totally concede. I think that the heroes implementation is clunky. I think they could have been implemented far cleaner. And I will say there's another thing that I want to talk about eventually on a video that makes I think heroes that is like an innate problem I have with AoE two, and I've had it for a long time that I think makes heroes almost impossible to do fairly. Which is ballistics and thumb ring. The fact that you can have a 40 stack of arbs, point and click kill anything in the game that isn't a siege weapon. That by itself means that heroes aren't viable. Unless you either turbo juice their HP, in which case it takes 3 arb volleys to kill them, ooh, or you turbo juice their pierce armor, in which case, first of all, they still can die to arbs, but on top of that, it just makes them unbalanced in other ways.
Mhm.
But just the fact that you can have every archer in the universe murder a single person perfectly from 9 range and they never miss, I think is
Yeah.
terrible game design. I hate it. I genuinely hate those technologies.
And let me guess, what you're thinking is one of those inverse scalable, like Shravamsha Pierce armor sort of things, a Boromir shield, where you get hit once, and then you can kind of shrug off X number of bolts for the next, couple seconds or whatever.
If I had to implement heroes, I would do something like that.
Yeah.
But I think that a bigger, more fundamental problem is the way archers work. It's like my least favorite part of the game is how archers work, just period.
Hmm.
And so I actually do think that it would be fundamentally very challenging to implement heroes in a way that was actually fair in Age of Empires. And part of it is because archers, just
Hmm.
period. So I think if I were building the game from the ground up, easy. I could so easily do it. Um, in my ideal game, archers couldn't hit the broadside of a fucking barn, and it would be like shooting into crowds, as they did in
Hmm.
real life. And maybe certain special archers would be quite accurate, but even then, I really
Right.
don't like laser guided precision targeting archers. I really don't like them.
Yeah. I feel you on that. I'm of two minds. I'm double minded. Where
As
if I
per
look
usual, you are the far more moderate and
right, right.
conciliatory between
Well, what I
us.
was gonna say, I would just highlight this point of it too, because I agree with you. Like historically, you look at how did archers work, and you're right. It's way more of a volley fire,
Suppressing
sort of.
area control, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you don't have you don't have archers on the walls just pinpoint, shooting
Yeah.
down guys. It's more wave tactics.
Yeah.
So I agree with you on that. On the other hand, what AoE the micro that archer experience, uh, in a lot of ways, in the actual play-by-play, maybe it's not historical, but it really does bring in so many cool. It brings in so much like micro and just the fun of playing the game
Mm-hmm.
um, has revolved around those kinds of aspects for so long. I feel like
Yeah.
something would be lost if
It's
it were changed.
convention. It's a convention, and it's a convention that I have gotten used to as many others, and I actually have fun with. Like when I played competitive, I tended to main archer civilizations for a reason, because they're broken, but also because I think they're fun. Um, and yeah, and so I agree that it's a convention. This is something that's way more fundamental. That would be very much based in like
Yeah.
a way of approaching game design that I just differ on. And I do
Well,
think it's part of the reason I'm not as enthusiastic about heroes in current game as I could be otherwise.
well, again, it kind of goes back to what we were saying about Chronicles, where what you're looking for is something that pushes the envelope more.
Yes,
And I think a
much more.
total rework of how archers work would be a really fun thing to explore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hell yeah! Like the idea of what if pretty much all archers worked like Arambai? That's pretty much what I'm looking for. Is
Yeah.
that they
Yeah.
honestly are very inaccurate. They cluster pretty well, and missed shots do full damage. I think suddenly that becomes a million times more interesting.
Yeah.
But that is again big opinion me. With the a quick summary of Chronicles and adjacent conversations now mostly done. Are you up for moving on to our discussion of Age of Mythology?
Let's do it.
Cool. So we got the Japanese. If you don't mind, I want to quickly
Please.
shift to a video I made talking about what I thought what cultures I thought would get into Age of Mythology. I made this a while ago, and I did guess the Japanese. They were my number 2 guess, and I thought it would be kind of fun to go through and see what my guesses were.
Ooh, I love that.
And
Yeah.
see how they actually got implemented. Now, I will say I don't know the new Japanese anywhere near by heart. I don't know them super well, but
Mm-hmm.
I think it could still be pretty fun to kind of go back and forth. So, first thing that I noted is how might their core mechanics work? Highly varied armies, great core options, but poor siege. If we look to the official Japanese, I actually believe they have only one siege weapon, the Oyumi. And from what I understand, they have a very strong array of elite units that tend to have a lot of special abilities. So
Right, and on top of that too, with the Bushido mechanic,
yeah, the upgrading
letting you
over time
just
thing.
like everything levels up as you get enough experience, it gives you a flexibility, kind of like we were talking about earlier with that infantry cav armor thing. Just everything levels up, so you're able to pivot your tactics really effectively. So I think you nailed it.
Yeah, I think I got that one. Next guess was sharp contrast between fodder and elites. I don't know if I would call this like a sharp contrast between fodder and elites. There is definitely a contrast, and the elites do have their kind of tie-in special mechanic where they charge your Bushido ranking faster. Maybe worth a half point, but
Well, don't the Japanese have like I want to say there are 2 recruitment buildings. They've got one for kind of their trash levy units,
yeah,
and then
they
the
got they
dojo
have a
for the elites.
dojo. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd say you got that.
All right, I'll give myself a point for that. Next, lots of myth units. Most gods have 2, a few have 3. Completely missed this, though I do still think it's a massive missed opportunity to not do this. Next, I had for heroes Descendants, 1 per age, first free, themed around the god of that age in terms of unit type and specific powers. Completely missed that too. Though I will say they do have a pretty decent variety of heroes, and they have like a different hero for each like soldier type, besides siege, of course. Favor, shrines, generating favor that builds in rate over time once it houses a kami, max number based on settlements. Now, obviously, we're going to do shrines. Like, they're duh. But instead, they have it as the Miko, which can build shrine and then praise at shrines to generate favor, which is, probably more sensible than what I was doing. But I will not give myself a point for that one. Then, for god guesses, I had major gods as Amaterasu, Tsukuyomi, and Susanoo, which is
Nailed it.
obvious. Like, you kind of... I don't even think I deserve a point for that. Because what else are you going to do? Of course it's going to be them. For the minor gods, though, I honestly completely missed it. I completely missed. I think I got, like...
You got
I got
Ryujin, right?
1. No, they didn't even use they use Watatsumi, which is like kind of similar to Ryujin, but I got Hachiman correct, and I got nothing else. And I was looking through all the ones that they chose, and I will be honest, I thought I knew like Japanese mythology pretty well. I recognized like half of these. Um,
Wow.
I really thought I knew it well, and I was like, what the heck? How did I get this so wrong? And it could be a kind of time frame thing, um, but and obviously I will say in an earlier draft of that vid I did have Fujin and Raijin in there, but like whatever, I didn't end up putting them in there. And I will say I think having them paired up in Heroic Age makes a lot of sense. Um, and so I completely missed this. I'd be curious to see how they came to these god decisions because these seem somewhere between obscure and extemporaneous. Um,
Hmm.
and then for myth units, it's kind of hard to like screw this up too bad. I got like three of them exactly by name, and I'm really surprised that they didn't go with stuff like the kappa and the namazu and things like that. That
Hmm.
seems like an obvious get, I guess. But yeah, pardon me. That's a brief monologue out of the way. Did
I
you
could have
have any thoughts and
sworn.
predictions for
I could have
them?
sworn that the Kappa are in there
I
somewhere.
don't think they are. I can
I
take a look.
saw at least an icon. I know there's a cheat code involving a Kappa, but I
Really?
don't
Oh,
know.
that's cool.
Yeah, but I don't know whether it's in the Civ proper. I'm sure the
They
comments
don't
can
have
tell
like
us.
just a list of myth units. That's annoying.
Well, what I was going to ask you, since you've got this pulled up and you have all of these gods that didn't make it in,
Yeah.
just for the fun of it, because people right now, I think in the Age of Mythology fandom, what a lot of people are saying is, boy, we don't really want another Civ yet. What we want are these fourth gods,
Yeah.
like the Norse have. So a lot of people are saying Demeter for the Greeks, and whatever. They're calling their shots. Um, in any of the gods that you kind of had in mind that didn't show up here, is there anybody that to you jumps out as an obvious fourth major god for the Japanese?
Fourth major god would be tricky. You probably would have to do Izanami and Izanagi, and you'd have to have them as a pair. Um, I don't think it's really reasonable to have them separate. You maybe could. Honestly, they probably would, frankly. But I think that there's no really other good candidates for major besides Izanami and Izanagi. They are too important. I will say, in terms of minor gods, the big miss was Tenjin. He's the learning god. He's so cool. Like, how could you miss him? But again, maybe I am just looking at the wrong time frame because I something I think is quite interesting that I'd love to hear your thoughts on in regards to the Japanese is time frame. Once
Yeah,
again, proving Age of Mythology has no time frame. Um,
yeah, yeah.
people read at me for saying this, and this is very much proof. Though I will say in the build that I was discussing, even though I think in the video I even said I'm pretty sure they're just gonna do the Samaria and all the like Garbo from the single Kujidai and all that, even though it's wildly extemporaneous. Doesn't matter. The build that I was discussing would have been tried to be set earlier, like kind of
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
Norse era in terms of its theming. But what do
Right.
you think about time frame in Age of Mythology?
Yeah, well, first off, I think you're hitting on a great point. Kind of makes me think of. I'm not wanting to beat up on the Three Kingdoms DLC, but it's kind of a similar thing where one of the problems there with the Wu Wei Shu is just you sort of miss the opportunity to explore a period of history that is really cool and
Mm.
gets overshadowed a lot, doesn't get talked about a lot.
Yeah,
And
I
sort of
agree.
similarly with the Japanese, there's a really cool period of history before the Sengoku Jidai and before, the that medieval
Unbelievably
Japanese
cool.
era that we all know.
Yep.
Um, that would be fun to explore. And because for me, one of the things about Age of Empires that I adore and I think makes the heart of the game, I know this is not for everybody, but I love how it teaches you history. I love how it's an
Couldn't agree more.
exploration of, just the real life world that we live in and the past that I think that's amazing. And so
Yep.
I love learning new things and exploring new stuff.
Yep.
And if it's too cookie cutter or too, if we're going out of the way of learning real history in order to hit these, sort of big pop moments, it can kind of feel like we missed something cool.
I
But
completely agree.
having said that, I do think that Age of Mythology, it's not an Age of Empires game. It's not a history game. It's a culture mythology game. And so for me, the time frame, like you said, it doesn't really have one. Um, I think as long as you've got a culture with a polytheistic mythology that kind of fits into a medieval-esque sort of time frame, so that everybody can use swords and bows can get used in that kind of thing. Um, I don't think it bothers me nearly as much as it would in an Age of Empires game,
Yep.
if things kind of shoot off too far from
I think that's a respectable take. As someone who adores mythology, that my main frustration is I find that the Age of Mythology games very often feel inauthentic in their portrayals of mythology because pop culture is very inauthentic in its portrayals of mythology.
I'm sorry, are you saying that Dwayne the Rock Johnson, Scorpion King, is not authentic Egyptian mythology?
Yes, I am saying this, in fact. Um, uh, Heretical though it may be. um, and I think that there is. People will very often say, well, if people are looking at things they don't understand, then they're never gonna click on it. They won't gonna buy it. To which I say, uh, my dude, what about every fantasy game of all time? Oh, I don't know this world. That means I can never approach it. I can never enjoy it. Incorrect. That's part of the joy of picking up a new world is learning about it. And then when you also see the magnitude of scope that this culture has behind it, and you're like, wow, this is maybe, and even especially if the game can even go so far as to concede we are oversimplifying this and this and this, like in a tooltip or something like that. Oh God, that's amazing. That's so cool. And being able to say, oh yeah, we're trying to do it as best we can. We understand the limits of our technology, the limits of our game mechanics, and the fact that we're trying to keep it fun to play as well means that we have to simplify here, 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 and here. I think that would be wildly better. Though at the same time, I will also concede that I don't believe a time frame is that important in Age of Mythology. I would probably do it myself because it's fun. But historicity is not as important in Age of Mythology as it is in Age of Empires. Though I think it is important enough to like pay homage to. Like I would not. The fact that the Greeks in Age of Mythology get a bunch of Macedonian units is wildly annoying to me. Like I just find it very irritating.
There is a really fascinating conversation to be had there, and it's one that I'm not coming in with an answer on, but just the thought of what role does pop culture play in an age game, whether
Yeah.
it's mythology or Age of Empires, because I think that there is something fun about latching on to these from our 21st century American perspective, latching on to sort of the pop culture or sort of what we think we know
Yeah.
about, different civilizations and bringing that to life. But
There's
then
a
you're right, it can
mythology in
very
that, yes.
easily overshadow what was really the case and what leads to a lot of discovery and exploration and just that side of the age experience is something that I think
Mhm.
gets overlooked often, the learning part of it.
Yep.
But
I agree. Well,
it's
and
it's what makes
here's
the
the
games.
thing. Once again, you're being wonderful and kind, as you so often are, and as I so often am not. Um, the way that I like to discuss this when people are like, "Well, Robbie, why do you have such a bug up your ass when it comes to historicity?" And it comes down to one thing: go out to any young person our age or like plus minus
Hmm.
5 years.
Hmm.
Say, have you played Age of Empires? And if they say yes, say, did Age of Empires get you into history? And the answer, I think, is going to be yes, a pretty alarming amount of the time.
Hmm.
Uh, and
Hmm.
you even take a step further. How much would you say Age of Empires taught you history, do you feel? That's going to be a pretty remarkable number as well. And then on top of that,
Yeah.
you look to, for example, people I've met who had very strict screen time restrictions, myself
Hmm.
included. Age of Empires was an educational game. That is the game parents were like, well, this one's actually about history, so I guess it's okay for kids.
Yep.
Yes, this is how it is perceived, and this is how it's shaped people's lives as an
Yep.
educational game. And the fact that it portrays Mamelukes lobbing scimitars at people is wildly out of line. This is why I have the basis I do, because even if we want to say, oh, it's just meant to be fun, it's just meant to be, but people take it seriously. People actually have learned history from Age of Empires, and it's been
Yeah.
crap. Like it's been bad.
I have seen comment after comment after comment saying, um, I started playing AoE back in the day, when it first came out, and now because of that game, I got into history and I'm wrapping up my doctorate in,
Yeah,
history
exactly.
of,
So
whatever.
even if the developers want to pretend like that wasn't the intention, that is how everyone has interpreted it, and it means that to me there is demand for historically authentic, not accurate, right? Authentic games that are played in an arcade style model. It tells me there is something there that needs to be captured lest it be lost. Because not everyone wants to do Crusader Kings or one of these like big, more sim style games, I suppose. Those are very accurate. They're beautifully accurate, but they're not for everyone. And so there's definitely a desire to have in RTS or more arcade style frameworks more authentic historical experiences.
Yeah, more authentic and more something else, like big scope, like
Yeah,
the
grand.
world. I think
Indeed.
that's something that I don't see a lot of other games doing. Is
I
when we get
agree.
into history games, they tend to be more, narrowed in, and
Yeah.
I think there's nothing for these Age of Empires or even other games like Rise of Nations or Civilization.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Precisely. I'm so sorry. I have not looked at comments in a little while. Let's go through real quick.
let's do it.
Piero says ranged micro is crucial to modern RTS and complete nonsense when you think about it for more than 10 seconds. Yeah. Diaborn adds the Japanese also have a hero unit that heals and can work as a siege unit, so they don't just have one. Fair point. Piero says the siege weapon is also anti-infantry. Fair point. Fingerfin says thanks for the well-detailed vids, Robbie and Kaiser. Much obliged, my friend. As usual for Age of Mythology, weird mishmash on the historical side, impeccable vibes on the whole with the myth units. Yeah, I'd say that the vibes are pretty cool. Though again, I would have loved to see it pushed further, but that's me. Um, Dearborn says, "Are you disappointed that the Japanese didn't have more available myth units?" Yes. Uh, and then Ewer says I believe the Kappa are in a swamp created by a god power. Oh, okay, cool. I didn't see that one. Pardon me. Yeah, a few other people say that. I'm glad it's represented, even though I would have loved to see it actually created. Diaborn says it would be difficult to see Izanagi and Izanami as a pair for the fourth major gods. Oh, I mean, you could separate them, but I'd love to hear why. Apparently, Kappa is doing the emote when people are trying to write that out.
Lol.
And then we have potential for fourth major gods and DLCs for all the non-Norse religions. I think, frankly, you could probably go further pretty easily. I did actually make a video about other gods that you could add more to the Norse. Bold take, I thought Scorpion King was authentic. Age of Mythology is supposed to be on popular mythology. I disagree with that. Or rather, I don't think it matters. In the same that, like what we were talking about, even if the Age of Empires people were like, oh, it's supposed to just be, fun and goofy, doesn't matter. It is being taken as a historical source. It is being taken as a historical teaching tool. And I think Age of Mythology is the same. I have unironically met people in the real world who have been surprised when they have learned that this Dwayne The Rock Johnson Scorpion King was not an actual thing the Egyptians believed in. Yeah, this is the power of Age of Mythology. And I think that's not great. Pardon,
Yeah,
just,
and I would,
yeah, carry on, please.
if I can, I just
I'm
jump in on that.
monologuing through all this crap. Sorry.
No. I really like this comment. And for me, like I was saying, I'm maybe a little bit more in the side of saying I think there might be a place for pop culture to kind of spice things up a little bit, or just to add a little extra. I think you can sprinkle that in. But I wouldn't say that Age of Mythology is supposed to be pop mythology.
Yeah.
That is the foundation of what the game is about. I do think age games thrive on exploring and learning and educating, and I just think anytime that you can get that authentic and real, in this case, authentic and real mythology, it's even more delightful.
Yeah,
So
I fully. Oh, that's a beautiful way of saying it, and it's a lovely way of moderating out my normal reeing. So I thank you as always. In that regard, by the way, something that I really firmly believe in is talking about authentic instead of accurate. Or this is something I've kind of shifted in over the course of my time making stuff on YouTube, where early on I was really trying to focus on accuracy, but if you focus too much on accuracy, then it does stop losing some of the color an individuality of the things involved. Because if we're really reductively boiling it down all the way to its basemost layer, a lot of human military history has been poking people with sticks. Like there's not that much difference between how one people pokes each other with sticks versus another. Um, and so to spice it up for purposes of gameplay and color and variety, you can emphasize and exaggerate differentiation points. Um, it still means that those differentiation points are based in our understanding of reality. It's based in our best reading of history. It's still authentic to what seems to have been the case. But you can push it further. You know, you can make the armies colored brightly and vividly and beautifully to match what we have seen in depictions and kind of guesses and estimations we have, even if in reality, are all of them going to be arrayed in the same gorgeous regalia? No. There's probably a lot of them are just going to be wearing what they wore at home and, you know, grab the local family spear, right? So I think that is the difference between authenticity and accuracy. We're not trying to simulate precisely how it looked and how it was. We are trying to present it in a game format that is still fun and cool and beautiful and splendorous as a game, but also doesn't actively mislead us. I think that's the big one for me. Does that make sense, or am I just talking?
No, I like it. Okay. I like it. No, and I agree. I mean, it's kind of like we were saying earlier. You know, sometimes the bonuses fall right in your lap, and it's just history. Boom. Other times, you know, you have to sort of you take this. You get a vibe. You know, you get a sense of like this civilization. You know, had a very strong cavalry focus. Then they liked using cavalry a lot, and then you have to translate that through game mechanics in a way that is sort of a unique spin, or you take some history and you spin it in a unique way in order for it to really resonate in a real-time strategy context. But yeah, no, I agree with you. Yeah.
Yep. A couple more comments. Would love a Diadokai Chronicles. That's definitely coming. Diaborn says Greeks get a lot of Macedonian units. That's interesting. Yeah, I can name you two off the top of my head. The Hittyroi, that's just companion cavalry, and then Hypaspists. That was specifically an Alexandrian thing. Tyranno says, and yet AoM portrayed Chinese Three Kingdoms units more accurately than in AoE 2. I actually do really like the new Chinese design in terms of their myth units are okay. Not my favorite, but I do like how they came to them. I think that the Chinese like human units are some of my favorites in Age of Mythology. I think they're really well done. Do you have strong opinions on the Age of Mythology Chinese stuff, or is it just like fine?
I'll say it's cool because again, it's a part of history or mythology that I didn't really know that much about. So I learned from it quite a bit, which was cool.
Absolutely.
Other than that, I think it actually just emphasizes maybe the Three Kingdoms stuff to say, why would we do Wu Wei and Shu when, you know, we have in the Age of Mythology kind of a similar time frame, and if you could have done, you know, some of these other by Tangu, I don't know, whatever these other civs that could have been a little more medieval, and there would have been more divergence between your properties, your product, and
I agree.
you know. Anyway,
well, and similarly, pardon me, Ewer says, would the fundamentally of Gen Sokyo Toho make a fundamentally different civilization? I actually know nothing about it. My guess is if you're asking, the answer is probably yes. But actually, the thing I wanted to mention is a comment down here of Piero saying Age 4 is fantastic, is likely the most accurate of the entire franchise. I actually think that is an interesting comment. We were discussing Age 4 a little earlier. And while I do have serious frickin' problems with the game, I think that one of the things that is best about it is I think it does historicity the best in the franchise, I would argue. With exceptions. Joan of Arc with a hand cannon, get the hell out of here. But yeah, the fact that it not only emphasizes the differentiation points, but also does try to teach history through things like its
Hmm.
cutscenes. Um, there's a lot to like about that, and I think that the way it plays is more authentic in some ways and much worse in others. So, but and that kind of makes it so that when it gets history really wrong, it makes me even more annoyed because it just feels
Yeah.
like an easy own goal when it's overall quite good. What are your thoughts in that regard?
That's an interesting. Age of Empires 4 is really interesting when it comes to historicity because I agree with you that um, when you look at like the documentary campaigns, I mean, it doesn't get more historical than that, right? It's here is the history. Now play a play a game, play
I
a
do think
match.
it's too dry,
Uh,
personally. Like I
I
think
was
it's
gonna say,
too
yeah,
boring. Like
that's almost where that authenticity, or so that you want that elevated history to come in, and
yeah,
I like the AoE2 experience of the narration and the storytelling, and
yeah.
sort of bringing it to life in a way that a documentary doesn't
And then
necessarily.
also
But
the scenarios are boring. I think that's the biggest sin is that
mhm,
it's one of the worst campaigns I think out of the Age franchise.
yeah, I could buy that. But but I'll concede the point though. It's
Yeah,
like it's very historical, awesome.
yeah,
But then I'm thinking, I guess, primarily about that first expansion pack when they introduced the idea of variants, and oh, that was so cool. I love the idea of variant civilizations. But then the ones they came up with were like,
terrible.
yeah, and
Joan
you
of
want to talk
Arc.
about fantasy, you want to talk about made up,
Yeah,
is some of that stuff like the Order of the Dragon, for example, if I'm remembering correctly, is very loosely based on the real thing.
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
the
That was the moment that I stopped taking H4 seriously. I was like, okay, well,
Yeah,
it just completely scuppered the main thing I thought it did well.
right, right. I'm trying to think of some of the others. Wu Chi's Legacy, I think, was one that was.
Mm.
And then there was the Sultan's Army. And what does that
It's so
even mean? And they
stupid.
ended up changing that. But right, and it's they so what makes me sad about that is not just that it's not historical, but that you really miss the opportunity to
Yeah,
get some awesome
exactly.
variants
Couldn't agree
in
more.
there. Just one example off the top of my head. If you're gonna have a variant for the French, why not do the Burgundians?
Seriously,
For example, or
they're
like
even
later on we
they're
got the Knights
even
Templar. I think that
gunpowder
works.
based. Like you
Yeah.
could have Joan of Arc with a hand cannon could have been replaced by an actual guy with a hand cannon.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't want to beat up on AoE4 too much because I'm not an AoE4 guy as much as I am with the others, and I know
Yeah,
there are people that are big AoE4 fans, so more power to you. It's awesome.
yeah,
But those are some of the things that just stick in my craw.
I agree. Yeah,
It's like they I agree with you. They kind of scuppered one of the things that was really good about AoE4.
I agree. Yeah, so it's a very disappointing game for me. Um, I think the best way I would summarize my experience with AoE4 is disappointment because there is good stuff there, but it's mixed in with enough frustrating things and easy misses that I don't know. I just have lost my what interest I had for it. Now, without me whinging further, we'll try to catch up more on comments later. Something I wanted to ask you more about, since you seem to know it better, is this new gauntlet mode in Age of Mythology. Because the more you've told me about it, the more it seemed like it's tremendous. So could you give us a quick summary of what it
So
is
there are going to be
and
people
why
in the
it's good?
comments that know a lot
Yeah,
more than I do. I
yeah,
I when the DLC came out, I was on vacation, and I was like, oh, as soon as I get home from vacation, I'm going to try out Age of Mythology, the new Japanese Civ, and the Gauntlet mode and everything. And I show up, and my main computer blue screens of death. So I haven't been able to play it. So people are going to know more than I will. But the Gauntlet mode, I think, is one of these modes that surprisingly has not gotten a lot of attention, a lot of the limelight tied into this whole new expansion. And I think it's the kind of thing we really need in the Age of Empires games because it's a mode, either single player or co-op, where you and I know that you get like a hero unit and you can unlock different starting hero units and customize different things of your opening, right? But it's sort of a roguelike where um you as you kind of advance down the chain, your opponents get harder and you can kind of customize. I don't know whether you're customizing your tech tree or just customizing your starting units and your hero power or whatever. But um you solo or as a group in a co-op experience, try to go as far as you can down the chain as your opponents get harder and harder and harder,
mm,
and presumably as a roguelike, you are unlocking more stuff until eventually you crumble and then you have to start over at the beginning, but now you're starting over from a much stronger place, and it just invites this replayability and like linking in different powers or different functions in order to try different strategies. And it seems like a really cool idea, and the kind of thing that would be awesome for an AoE2 experience, or an AoE4 experience, or whatever.
Yep.
Um,
So
Even AoE3 with its home city shipments probably would have done something really cool there, where you could
yeah,
have unlocked more
seriously.
things to ship. So
And why do
yeah,
you think that this is important? Because I think it is, but why do you think?
yeah. Well, I think oh, dude, it's so important for a couple of reasons. Probably, if I had to pick one, it's because you've got the multiplayer crowd and the single player crowd. You got a lot of people that only play the single player. I've got the campaigns, maybe some skirmish, and then I'm done. Right? I would love to have more opportunity to replay new things, but that's all I've got. And then you've got the multiplayer crowd, and all you've really got if you're into multiplayer, maybe you've got some co-op campaigns, but for the most part, it's the ranked ladder, and that's it. And you just try to make your fun out of different, regicides and community games or whatever, but that's all you've got. And so I think bridging that gap is something that's critically important for strategy games generally. If you're making a strategy game, you got to come up with a way of encouraging people to play with their friends, and I think that involves making the ranked ladder less intimidating, but it also means coming up with new ways of getting friends to play together other than competitive 1v1 or 2v2 or whatever.
Yep.
And so this gauntlet co-op mode is this really fun way of it's like you're getting friends together, we're going to play something, and we're working cooperatively. So we're not like it's not a PvP experience where I'm worried about just getting beat and getting embarrassed by another human who's just so much better at this game than I am, that kind of thing. But then B, it's also bite size, and it's something that you can do. You can do it for a little while. Say, oh, that was a great run. See you tomorrow. See you next week. We'll do it again. And I think that gameplay loop is a really cool thing that you don't get out of a co-op campaign.
Yep.
So I think that's just a great I don't even want to call it, it's a great stepping stone to eventually like trying out PvP and that kind of thing. But even outside of that, forget the PvP. It's a really great way of getting friends to come together and play the game repeatedly as just a go-to part of your weekly routine or whatever. It's just fun. And I think we need we and the strategy world need to rethink how we approach multiplayer. And I think that's one of the ways we can do it.
I think that's a very good point, and it's well expressed. The other thing that there is to remember too is that the strategy game, the real-time strategy game player base pales in comparison to the greater video game player base. And some of the most famous and successful games of the recent era are technically real-time strategy games. I point you to League of Legends and Dota.
Okay. Yeah.
They are obviously in a very different direction. They're one character that you're controlling, but when you think about it, you have the same top-down view. You're still right-clicking. You're still doing all of the same. There's a mini map. There's fog of war. There's all of these RTS conventions. What makes it different? Why is it that these games have enormous mass appeal, and traditional RTS does not? I would argue that a huge component of it is down to the accessible multiplayer experience that isn't just about sweaty tryharding. And that gives people a kind of campaign-like feel, because it can be casual, it can be fun, they can get with their friends, they can say, hey, let's do it again next week, that was fun. It gives them an excuse to socialize, I suppose.
Yeah.
And people love having an excuse to socialize. Video games are a great excuse to socialize. And this seems like a direction wherein we can give people an excuse to socialize.
Sometimes you just want to hang out with the bros.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I don't think real, like, unless you're, and again, I'm into the PvP. I can hang out with the bros by doing PvP, but for a lot of people, you start thinking in that realm, and that's scary. Or I could do it, but I got to put 100% of my attention into it, and I'm worried about losing, and it's just not the environment that you want. You just want to sit back and relax and hang with the bros, and I think we need more modes that let you hang with the bros, and
Modes for the
that's one of them.
bros. That's the
Yeah.
campaign slogan.
That's right. Yeah, so and I think just this roguelike mode, I mean it's intense enough that you're,
You care, right? It's like League of
you
Legends. It's
care,
intense
you
enough that you
care,
care.
but it's also hanging out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not just like, well, I'll set up a skirmish mode against some bots. I mean, that's almost too. That can very quickly lose its salt.
Yeah, I agree.
It can lose its flavor. So that's a really good way of. I think modes like that. We need to be looking at more opportunities along those lines.
Yep.
For the PvE co-op experience.
Absolutely. A couple other comments I need to catch up. From Age 2 onwards, from Piero, if there's a lot of pop culture baked into the game, it's almost impossible to remove it or correct it without completely scarring the game. I agree. Yep.
Yeah, I think what we're probably talking about, if you were talking about removing it, we're talking about a different game.
It's a different game.
That's think about the future. Yeah.
Why I've been pivoting on my channel so much, talking about RTS more broadly, because the more I've thought about it, the more I've realized that a lot of the stuff I talk about is just completely changing everything. Although at the same time, I think that Roma ad Bellum is another example of a mod that pretty much completely changes everything. And yet can still work within the same engine, the same framework, even if it is a completely different game, and a very good one. Archomegus says, since Return of Rome DLC, any Antiquity attempt at AoE 2 got me cautious. Battle for Greece really did damage for me, and I'm pessimistically cautious about the Alexander ones. I think a lot of people are in that boat. I know Battles for Greece is a really interesting one, because on one hand, it seems to have done well. They, in their announcement for Alexander, they said the fan favorite Chronicles DLC. So it seems to have done well, but I've seen quite a few mixed reviews on it as well. It does not seem to have just been a straightforward smash hit that everyone loved, even though there's definitely plenty it did right. So yeah, it's a good take. It's a good point to bring out, that's not just a universal thing that everyone loves. Chumbeke adds, Age 4's scenarios are so railroaded, you start to wonder why they even bother making you play them. I would agree. That's one of the things I don't like about that game, is I don't like the scenarios at all. And let's see, other commenters. Okay, I'll get to the other commenters in a second. But before I do so, we've been talking about Age of Mythology. We've been talking about AoE 2. We've even talked a bit about AoE 4. However, you were very much an AoE 3 guy in a lot of ways. And even though AoE 3 has had some serious blows recently, I want to hear from you about some AoE 3 stuff that you think is relevant and useful and important, especially for those in the rest of the Age fan base.
So yeah, my most recent video on my channel was about AoE 3 and how I think that we've really hit this. There's sort of a deciding moment for AoE 3 right now, both in terms of the developers and in terms of the fan base. So as far as the developers go, I think that we just had the Japanese release. A lot of the AoE 3 devs are the Age of Mythology guys too, so they got pulled away to just make sure that Age of Mythology hits its goals.
Yep.
And so the Japanese release has just happened. And so now there's kind of, if there's ever going to be a moment for them to come back and look at AoE 3, it's now.
Yeah.
And I think that would be a very important thing, because I think that the way, even if you're not an AoE 3 person, the way that the DLC got canceled for AoE 3, part of my thesis is the way that all went down impacted the Age community's trust in World's Edge as a whole.
Yep.
And I think I personally see this ripple effect from what happened with AoE 3 to the discomfort surrounding the Three Kingdoms to the anxiety surrounding Age of Mythology. And is this going to be it? Are we going to is the game going to fade into obscurity as soon as this last DLC releases?
Yeah.
And there's the whole reason why they had that note in their last that last update about we're not done with the game, and that reassurance that they're going to keep doing Age of Mythology stuff. All of that, I think, is rippling from what originally happened to AoE 3. And so I make the argument to the developers that there is this great opportunity for improving your standing among the your clientele and the fan base by going back and at least putting out one more patch that fixes some of the key things that are still kind of reoccurring issues in AoE 3. Let alone releasing a new DLC or anything like that, but just going back and giving it one last round of patches and attention and that kind of thing. But then also for the fans, like even if they don't do that, for the fan base, there's a big hardcore AoE 3 crowd that says we love this game. We don't want to have to move on to other games. There's really no other game that does what AoE 3 does. This is our baby.
I agree.
What now? What does the future look like?
Yeah.
And I've been making the argument, like I said at the beginning of the stream, one of the things that I am is the mod guy. And I look at all of these old games that have not only survived, but they have sort of exploded in popularity, and they just have a hardcore fan base because of the work of some big mod.
Yeah.
And I could list off a dozen of them. I've already mentioned the Expanding Fronts mod for Galactic Battlegrounds, or I could mention the Age of the Ring for Battle for Middle-earth 2, or I could mention
Warlords Battlecry has one too.
Yeah. You had on
Chronogo, who does Cosmonarchy,
Cosmonarchy,
So
exactly right. That's awesome. And I think that I don't know how much time we have. I could keep it short.
No.
Basically, the thesis of my argument is AoE 3, I think, is in a place where we've got some incredible modders who have done some incredible work. Just like coming up with civs or these fun projects. Age of the World, Age of Pirates, Jewel of Empires is coming up on the scene.
Yeah, Jewel.
So
I was going to ask
really
you
cool
if you'd heard about Jewel of Empires. Of course you have.
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, they're awesome. But what I think is teed up for us, if anyone is willing to take a swing at it, I think that what AoE 3 needs is a mod. It is the mod to rule them all. We need that kind of this big mod that is willing to kind of step into the same sorts of shoes that those mods that I previously mentioned, and a dozen more that I could mention, have done for their respective games.
Yep.
And I think as much as I'm not at all talking smack about again, Age of Pirates or Age of the World or anything. That they're awesome, but I don't think that the vision that those mods have in mind is the big one that AoE 3 needs.
Well, would you say Wars of Liberty was that?
Wars of Liberty for the original Age of Empires, I would say Wars of Liberty was that. Yeah. And looking at what does that mean when I say the big one? I think a mod that is willing to start back at the beginning and freshen up the original civilizations, be willing to sort of play with the core mechanics, and bring in this new experience from the original game. Then you're adding in new stuff too that's exciting and encouraging, and just a whole bunch of other things. I want to make a video about it. Just what all should this look like? So I've even got in mind.
You might say making a new game with the existing game's engine.
It heads in that direction, yeah, where it's willing to, like, I mean, again, if you just to pick one example, if you look at the Age of the Ring versus the base Battle for Middle-earth 2, it's not just adding new civs, well, we didn't have Rohan before or whatever, we'll add them in. It's like, even if you play base Gondor or whatever, it's just a very different experience. It's a total refresh of the roster, of how the game works, of and it makes for this just exciting thing for the community to rally behind. And I think that's basically what's needed, is this new project with fresh development for the community to rally behind. And I just think there's a lot of opportunity there.
Absolutely. Briefly checking in with chat, Archomegas was giving a quick summary of problems from like a historical perspective and also pragmatic perspective with Battle for Greece. The one that I want to shout out is major players being overlooked, like Corinth and Thebes and the Thessalian League. Yeah, I would have loved to see more. I think 3 civilizations is too simplistic. But then also we have Piero saying the big fix and then do an
Right.
SC2 where they get a patch after 5 years of abandonment. Haha. Maybe fix that one thing where a crossbow shipment doesn't work and breaks the official campaign, from what I understand.
I I really want to jump on this last comment
Yeah, do
from
it.
Chimbekwa here. My dude, by the way, love you, dude.
Yeah, Chembeke is the best.
Who
And
said,
to just,
yeah,
yeah,
he
you
really
read it
is.
out.
He's
You read
awesome.
it out.
And there's like, if anybody knows anything about AoE3, it's Chimbekwa. But he says, personally, the problem with freshening up the OG civs, they have so much going on as it is with D. I agree with you 100%, and that's why um, I will, again, maybe on my own channel, if you guys want to follow me over there, at some point I'll bring a more structured proposal. But that's definitely why what is in my mind is not just more. I'm not saying add more, do
Mm,
more. I'm saying in some ways it means trim and streamline and I don't I want to be careful because I think some people here they go, "Oh no, you're taking away flavor." And but no, I think that there's a lot of I think AoE 3, I love that game. I think AoE 3 has aspects to it that just sort of there's stuff that doesn't feel like it's part of the cohesive whole. It doesn't feel like it. Like for example, I mean, off the top of my head, I'm thinking of like the Dutch. Originally, the Dutch had no musketeers. Now they get access to 3 different kinds of musketeers. And what's the difference between a blue guard musketeer and a Khan musketeer? And like I don't know. It's weird. And I ask the pros and the content. I do a quiz show for the pros and the content creators for AoE3, and they're not entirely sure, what class of unit this belongs to. And there's a lot of stuff that I think a lot of opportunity for a mod team to come in and say we're going to streamline and we're going to and then build a foundation that lets us add in really cool things and make civs more flavorful in part by just going through the game and um, I think tightening up some of those screws.
sure. No, it's a
Um,
really good summary. It makes a lot of sense, and it's a good example of how more is not always better, and taking things away can be a really cool and unique part of something's identity. Um, this is something I've tried quite a few times in my builds to mixed success. Um,
yeah.
Something that, oh crud, I had something and then I lost it, so I will not do that. But instead, something that Diaborn mentions in chat is, you know what RTS games don't have a lot of? Anime real time strategy game with anime graphics. I actually have a theory on this, which is why I bring it up. Anime tends to not be an ensemble production. Anime characters tend to be extremely individualized. They tend to want to have the spotlight entirely on them. And real time strategy is not a spotlight sort of experience. So, for all I know, there might be some obscure indie dev out there who has, fucking waifu wars or something like that.
I
But
do remember. Yes, there was a game out. I forget, like this maybe 6 months ago or so that I ran into this. It was like anime RTS. Yeah, like waifu wars
yeah,
practically.
exactly.
You
Yeah,
nailed
I
it.
guessed it even.
Yeah. So I'm sure there's. I know it's out there, and I just didn't have the time to record a
Yeah,
video on it.
but I
But
bet that's why it's not more common. Um,
that's a really interesting. I agree with you. I think that anime very often, not always. I could do like a Have you ever played Valkyria Chronicles?
I have not.
All right, the first game is actually an all-time great just game. It's a kind of like it's sort of a turn-based strategy game, and it's pretty cool, and it kind of has an anime aesthetic.
There's a lot of
Uh,
turn-based anime things. I mean, I'm a big Fire Emblem guy.
yeah, that would
And
a Fire Emblem strategy game, dude,
Fire
that'd be
Emblem
awesome.
real-time strategy game would be pretty sweet. Eh?
I agree with you.
I think that would
Yeah,
be awesome.
yeah.
Will it ever happen? No, because they barely know how to make a mainline Fire Emblem game anymore. But I think that the potential is there for sure. Um,
Well, it's kind of like what was it? Harvest Moon was so popular, and then that franchise dropped off forever until somebody finally made oh, what's it called?
oh crud! Stardew Valley. That's the
Stardew
one.
Valley, right,
There
right.
you
Kind of
go.
like that. There's never going to be a Fire Emblem RTS, but there's an opportunity for somebody to step in and,
Yeah,
and do
it's like
Fire Emblem at home
there's a
RTS.
bunch of Fire Emblem knockoffs, so to speak.
Yeah.
There was one Pegasus something, I can't remember the name. I mean, they had Triangle Strategy. That was one. I didn't think that one was
Yeah.
fantastic though. But there, yeah. So there's definitely space for indies to like swoop in and see if they can grab something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Which is sick. Um, Other thoughts on Age 3? Given that I have an Age 3 expert here and have very little knowledge of it myself.
I like how right now we're all talking about Gundam RTS and uh
That's awesome. I didn't see that.
yes, Age of Fire Emblem. Yeah,
Yeah, I
I'm
think it'd
down
be
for that,
sick.
dude.
I actually
Yeah,
had a video script somewhere that I didn't finish talking about what Fire Emblem civilizations would look like in Age of Empires.
yeah, that actually would be really cool. I
Yeah.
would love that. I think more. I think like we talked about how one of the cool things about Chronicles is that it kind of opens up the door to these other projects, and I think one that would be really fitting and very neat would be some kind of fantasy AoE world,
Oh yeah.
and just seeing how that would translate
It's weird
for
that
sure.
those aren't more common. I
Yeah,
guess is the way I'd put it. You have like
yeah,
Warcraft.
yeah.
And even Warcraft I would argue is so different from Age of Empires that like they almost don't feel like the same genre. Um,
Mm,
because Warcraft obviously they're both real-time strategy, but they approach it so vastly
yeah,
differently.
yeah, yeah. No, as far as AoE 3, I mean that's basically just my main thesis. I've even been working privately on a proposal for like what I think what I think is achievable, but then like what I think that big mod should look like.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited to share it with people. So make sure you like and subscribe and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
But
Check
yeah,
out
no
Iron
other
Kaiser.
yeah, Iron Kaiser Gaming. Other than that, no, I really think that there's an opportunity that if you really want to see AoE 3, because in the community right now, there's a lot of people saying, well, what do we do? Do we just keep playing the game because we've got the fan base there? Do we just keep playing the game? Do we move on to some kind of community patch or something? And I think that you need more than a community patch. I think you need that Wars of Liberty sort of experience. You need
Yeah.
that kind of big project that's willing to step in and just be the future
Yeah.
of AoE 3.
And frankly, the
So,
fact that the game is, I'm going to use this word not pejoratively or because I want it to be the case, because it seems to be, because it is a dead game, ha ha ha, without getting active support, that does actually present a unique benefit to modders not needing to get their creations murdered every 6 months. I know that AoE 3 was one of the best games out there about working with modders and making sure that their updates didn't break everything, even though they sometimes did anyways. Um, but it seems to be the case that really ambitious mod projects tend to happen most often when a game is no longer being actively supported.
I teach Latin, and I have students who ask me all the time, Kaiser, Mr. Kaiser, why do we learn this dead language? Why what's the point there? And one of the answers to that, there's a dozen reasons why.
Mm.
But one of the reasons why we learn Latin is because it is a dead language. It's frozen in time. You know the rules.
Yep.
And so it makes developing and building your language skills so much easier than if you were learning a living language that is constantly changing, the rules or the slang or whatever, right? You want that solid foundation that's
Absolutely.
unmoving. And same thing is true, like you're saying, with one of these big mods. When a game is finished, that's when you can really begin building the edifice for an
Yep.
awesome mod like that.
I think that's really well said. And frankly, it's the sort of thing, I'm not saying this to be nasty or anything. I actually think that one of the best things that could happen to Age of Empires 2 in some ways would be freezing it, or at least having a frozen version upon which mods could be built. I put out a vid not terribly long ago talking about how modding not being very accessible or easy and often breaking is one of the biggest problems with AoE 2. And I think that once we have a way of stabilizing mod work, whether that be the game pausing or freezing or having just like a frozen version just for mod making, I think that would be tremendous, like a really big boon to the game. The last thing I wanted to mention that I had prepped is I just pulled open the Age of Mythology Steam chart.
Okay.
I love Steam charts. They're awesome. And there's something I think that's quite useful to note about this, right? Which is that Age of Mythology's average players have been consistently getting a little weak over time, especially up to like July, going below 2,000. And even with the Japanese coming up, the average players are bumping up to the mid 2000s, whereas when the game first released, obviously, it had the huge release burst of about 10K, and
Right.
then it went down to like 4K and then 3. So uh, obviously the peak players has gone up. It peaked out at 10K, which is the highest it's been since launch, with the release of the Japanese. But it doesn't seem like that's translating massively. The peak is there, but it doesn't seem like it's translating to a big bump in average players. The average players, even with the Japanese out, seem to be lower than when the game was like 3 months old, 4 months old, even 5 now that I'm looking at it. And that again tells me that there's something missing with Age of Mythology to some degree. And even with, I would say, one of the best campaigns in all of RTS, even with them trying out these different modes to find ways to bring people in, there still seems to be something missing. And I don't know if you would have a different analysis on this, or if you think I should read it differently. But I'd be curious to hear what you think in this regard, whether there is something that's missing, and if so, what you think that something is.
That is a really good question, and it's one that I can't speak with any authority. I can't show up here and say, "Oh, I know what it is. They need to do this or whatever."
I
I mean,
certainly
there's
can't either.
yeah. I can like take some. I'll give you an example of something that's in my head for me personally, because I've not played Age of Mythology as much as I would have liked to. It's almost like I kind of put it down for a little while, and then, oh wow, it's been forever since I played Age of Mythology.
Yeah.
I think one thing for me personally, again, the PvP multiplayer guy, right, is that god powers are so strong that they can kind of, um, at least at the average player experience that I'm at playing on the ladder, that they're so strong that they can almost feel like they are, they they sort of eliminate some of the strategy element. I'm thinking like, well, why did I not play Age of Mythology as much as I had? And I can remember a scenario where I built up an army, I'd outmaneuvered my opponent, got into his base, I'm raiding him, and it's going great. And then my opponent hits the next age and is able to immediately, I think it was like ice storm me, so my units just get locked down, and then he's granted 30 seconds to just build up and counter raid me and blow me up, and it's like, oh wow, this is these wild swings from the god powers. Like as soon as
Mm-hmm.
you level up, it's hard to plan around that. But I don't know that that's it. I think for that single player experience, that's probably you know cool. It's awesome. It's a big spectacle, which is something you want out of a strategy game, is spectacle. So I don't think that's why people aren't playing. Maybe it's because people are buy Age of Mythology for the campaigns. And so you wanted to relive that Fall of the Trident campaign. You did. And you said, "All right, I'm good," and you just don't feel the need to come back. Um, Maybe it's something like I said earlier, where they're not advertising that gauntlet mode, so people see it as you buy it. There's another campaign to play, and if you're not playing on the multiplayer side of things, you're pretty much done after that campaign. So
Hmm.
um, there's not really a hurry to get into it. I don't know the answer.
So I have a couple thoughts in that regard. The first being that in terms of there's these big swings, I actually don't think that big swings are incompatible with competitive gaming. Um, my favorite example would be that is somewhat tangentially related to RTS is Dota 2.
Mm.
In Dota, there's, especially coming from like looking at other comparable games, everything in Dota is broken. They're all
Mm.
stupid. They
For the board, yeah.
nothing. It's all unfair, and because everything's unfair, nothing is unfair. um,
Right, right.
and obviously, they have their own balance. And I'm sure people who know Dota better than I would say, "Well, that's wildly simplistic," but I
Yeah.
think it's still in the right direction. So I think that you can account for wild swings.
Hmm.
It just has to be an expected part of your game. And
Hmm.
maybe Age of Mythology is trying too hard to stay with a conventional model. Once again, Robbie trying to make people do unconventional things. Ha ha ha. However, um, I think there's actually another piece to it, which is, can you name me an Age of Mythology mod?
I actually there is one guy that's on the. I get your point, and you're 100% right. There's one guy on the subreddit who's got this mod. It's like realism enhanced or something. I don't even fully remember the name. Where he's like playing around with mod like unit skins and like the way the game plays and that kind of thing.
Hmm.
But I agree with you though. That, yeah, there's not really this big AoM mod that
Yep.
like the Aztec mod from the
And the
original
original
Age of
one.
Mythology.
Yep.
There's nothing like that,
Yep.
right?
Exactly. And there's a reason for that, which is that from what I've heard and I've understood, Age of Mythology has one of the worst editors in all of Age games. It's extremely dense, it's extremely obtuse, it's extremely hard to work with, it breaks all the time. Um, I think I'm not going to say that that's single-handedly why this is happening. Um, I think that is a big part of it. And the only time that Age of Mythology has had major success with modding is when you have had a full team of highly knowledgeable people working together for a very long time. You have the original Chinese one, which, meh. And you have Return of the Gods, which is really impressive and cool. And I think they did amazing stuff. H Haton has done amazing stuff with that mod. But it took a really serious committed effort from a group of people who
Yeah.
really know what they're doing. It's very hard to casually mod Age of Mythology. It's even hard to do it at like a mid tier. I'd say it's almost impossible in both regards. You have to be amazing in order to make it do anything. And maybe it's very powerful when you're amazing at it, but the way I would look at it is that Age of Mythology's mod editor seems to be about as dense as Warcraft 3, and it has nowhere near the flexibility and the accessibility. Right. Warcraft 3 you could do incredible things with.
I did notice in the most recent, so the patch notes that came with the Japanese release, is that there is a section on basically they've blown open some of the mod functions. I think specifically the idea of you're able to import in new models that wasn't a thing before.
That's
Um,
huge.
and so I've not really done a deep dive into it, but the point I'm making is that maybe they're on the same thought process that you are. That what we need to do is open this up to modders because can't emphasize this enough. Mods really provide a longevity
Yep.
and an engagement point for the community. That's what I'm saying AoE3 needs is that engagement point, the big mod. I think in Age of Mythology might be a similar thing where you really want people invested in the game. You want mods.
Yep.
And so maybe they see what you're talking about.
Yeah, because like I said, Age of Mythology has, for those in the know, a couple of legendary mods, but you can't name one that you play regularly with friends on ladder or like on like random multiplayer lobbies. It doesn't have a Castle Blood. It doesn't have any of these
Right.
kind of like fun, accessible, quick jump in sort of mods. Hell, those sort of mods were what let StarCraft 2 keep an enormous amount of longevity for quite a while in the casual space. Because, yeah, you have the sweaty tryhards who are going to play ladder till the day they die. But then for the people who are there to do campaigns and skirmishes, um, they and maybe screw around with multiplayer a little bit. The mods are what make them go like, oh, okay, I can have fun with the boys. I can hang out, you know? Because even though I myself have indulged in being a sweaty tryhard on the ladder, and it is very fun. I enjoy it. I'm a competitive person. Um, it's a small percentage, and the more other features you have, the more other things you can have that people have to get them involved in the game deeper, the more likely they are to shift to the ladder. Like I didn't play ladder on Age of Empires first of all, at all when I was a child and first got the game, obviously. But even when I got back into it as a very young adult, I didn't jump into the ladder immediately. I wanted to relive my childhood at first, and then I wanted to play the new campaigns that they had, and then I wanted to play with some scenario editor stuff, and then I wanted to do some skirmishes, and then I was like, okay, maybe I'll do the ladder. And that turned out to be fun. But there's a chain of events that got me there. So yeah, in summary, I think that I would attribute a chunk of the Age of Mythology stagnation to mods and lack of mod making. And I saw what Diaborn said in chat. I don't think AOMR is doing badly. Got nearly to 10,000 players It's doing good. It's just that Microsoft has super unrealistic expectations of making super successful games. I see what you're saying, and there is a peak of 10,000, but you have to look at the average and you have to look at the overall gain loss charts. This is like substantial losses month over month. With since the game released, they have had 3 positive months in terms of player gain. That's bad. That's a bad trend. And I'm sure Microsoft are looking at that saying, okay, well, where's this going to stabilize? It looks like the stabilize is probably going to be somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000. But even then, what are those players doing? How can we get them to refer their friends and come play together? Because otherwise, remember, they shit canned AoE 3 for numbers 2 to 3 times better than these. And so even if it's an unrealistic set of expectations, it's a set of expectations that are our reality as fans of the franchise. And then Chumbeke adds, at least from the POV of the modding scene, the advantage we've got in AoE 3 DE is that for once we're coordinating with the Chinese community, so we aren't living in parallel universes anymore. That's awesome. Yeah. That's fantastic. I don't know how much the game can necessarily facilitate that. There's probably a lot else going on too, but that's great to hear. Those are all the topics I had explicitly prepared. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about, Kaiser?
No, I think we pretty much hit all the core things.
Yeah.
I think that we've hit it all. Like we talked about Chronicles and AoE 2. Got a little bit of the Three Kingdoms in there too, which I think we could have a whole podcast just on talking about the future of AoE and Three Kingdoms and stuff like that. Talked about AoE 3 a little bit. AoE 4 we dived into just a smidge, and then Age of Mythology, which I think, again, Age of Mythology has some really cool stuff that's come out. I can't wait to get my hands on it and actually play around with some of the stuff. I think they need to spotlight it even more, like this gauntlet mode. Has anyone put out a video yet, like my first gauntlet run or something like that? Because that's what I would be doing right now. Is
oh, you lagged out on me there. I'm so
booting
sorry.
up my recording software and doing a gauntlet run. Somebody ought to be doing that, and there's an opportunity.
Sorry,
but I was just saying. I think we've hit it all.
Yeah, nice.
Are you with me? We're good.
Okay. I think you're back at this point. I just looked up AoM Gauntlet on YouTube. I got a single video from Boet TV that says, what is the new Gauntlet mode, with 2.7k views. And I see not a single other video that is talking about AoM Gauntlets.
If I had my PC right now, there's your moment. And not even for the fan creators, but like for Microsoft, where's the spotlight on this? Because I think it's a big deal. I think that's the kind of thing that would bring more people in.
Yeah, seriously. So, as like a final thing, I'll mention, I think that a consistent issue with RTS recently, is that it has focused over much on competitive multiplayer. Not because I don't like competitive multiplayer. I actually have a lot of fun watching it, and I have a lot of fun playing it. But I think that this is the issue with AoE 4, and one of my big kind of fundamental problems with the game is the kind of StarCraftification of RTS, where AoE 4 to me has a very StarCraft style gameplay loop that makes it difficult to. But then they're not designing StarCraft style campaigns, and so they're trying to really focus this esports competitive multiplayer thing. It kind of seems that way in Age of Mythology as well. And I don't think it's sustainable, personally. Nor do I think it's what people are really looking for when they're looking to get into a game. They want to get to that point after they love the game. And then suddenly you can make an amazing esports scene. But yeah, I think it's putting the cart before the horse, to use the obnoxious, overused talking head saying.
No, I would agree with that. I was telling the audience earlier that, it's one of those things where you have to approach the world as it is, not the way you'd want it to be.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a big multiplayer PvP guy, and so if it were me, I would want an RTS that, like, it'd be all about the PvP multiplayer. But the numbers just tell you that's not the case. And I think what an RTS needs, there's this analogy. I don't have a whole lot of time left on my end, but I want to share this story really fast.
This will be our end point.
All right. There is this story from. You ever play Shovel Knight, that indie darling from like way back in the
It's
day?
a good game. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Uh, I read this little developer journal where they talked about how they added in the duck function that does nothing functionally in the game. It just causes the knight to do this little bob. And what they found is that people loved it. They just loved having him bob to the music, and that's the only reason it's in there. And they added it because it was something just fun to just be in that world and play around in. And I think it's one of the beautiful things about Age of Empires 2 is for a lot of people that was their intro to RTS, and it's just fun to go around, build houses, build mills and lumber camps, kind of build your little city, and and you start. I'll put 2 guys on wood and 2 on food and 2 on gold and 2 on stone and whatever, and you're just building your own little town, and that's enjoyable long before you ever get to the the more competitive aspect and build orders and how you're supposed to play AoE2. Um, I think it kind of captures a similar energy to that Shovel Knight example. I think RTS needs that. And I think what a lot of modern RTSs are doing is that sort of streamlining where they're focused so much on the competitive side or the hardcore side that you lose some aspect, some ephemeral aspect of just new people coming into the game, coming into the genre, and just having fun with these little things that maybe don't even matter in the big meta side of things. I don't know if that's making any sense,
No, it was
but
very nicely said. I like the way you think, and there's one other thing I can add to it. Have you played Warcraft? Warcraft 2, Warcraft 3?
I know about it. I've not to any significant degree.
That's fine. The thing I wanted to mention about it in Warcraft 2 and 3, if you click the same unit many times, the unit will start getting annoyed with you and say alternate voice lines that are increasingly funny. It's awesome. It's one of the most memorable things about the game, especially as a young player. Your friend shows you, "Hey, did you know that you can get the Tauren to say a swear if you click on him a lot?" It's so exciting, and I think it's very much in the same direction as the Shovel Knight thing. Completely pointless.
Right.
But we have to remember that things that help you win are not always things that sell the game. Because why would you want to win before you care? And so I think that RTS needs to make people care more, and then that will make them want to win.
Yeah, there's fun, there's spectacle, and there's just, I don't know, just being willing to immerse yourself in that world, especially for new people. And it's not about getting caught up to speed so they can play PvP with everybody else. It's just create a fun world to live in, and then that will naturally ignite the interest in them to get better at the game from there.
Exactly right. In that case, shall we? Well, let's wrap it up with Kaiser, and then I'll do a quick sign off with you guys, and then we'll end this thing off. Shall we?
All right, guys. Thank you so much for following along, dude. This was awesome. I loved hanging out with you, talking about RTS.
I love hanging out with you, man. It's always a pleasure. You have such a wonderful way of balancing out my nonsense. And you have great takes, so it's always a pleasure to see you. Great to see your face again. And I hope we can do this again in the future.
Totally. Let's do it. All right.
Excellent.
See you, man.
See you later, my friend. Okay, and then for all of you who are watching, thank you guys so much for taking the time. It has been a pleasure talking to you. I hope it's fun getting to see an Age of Empires stream talking about Age of Empires for once. And until we meet again, my name is Robbie Howell. This has been Iron Kaiser. Make sure you check him out if you haven't checked him out already. And ciao for now, everyone.
See you.